let's move to calisthenics. Okay. So let me ask about calisthenics first, about in your own life. So what role has calisthenics played in your own athletic development? So we're going to talk about you first, and then we'll talk about in the athletic development setting for general population. So first, let's talk about you.
Yeah, so in terms of calisthenics, one of the things that gymnastics is based off is being able to move your body, and specifically on these different pieces of equipment. And calisthenics, the way that it's seen is as the conditioning elements that one would use as a foundation for having a base of performance to achieve whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in gymnastics. So for me, calisthenics has always been the conditioning part, the base level of performance that one needs to have to express themselves at the highest level. So that's what calisthenics is for me. The other thing is, one of the features that you will see in a gymnastics facility is a set of stall bars. These stall bars, which are usually wooden, is an element and a piece of equipment that in Sweden is very prevalent. And I believe it's actually a Swedish or at least a Scandinavian piece of equipment. And it was used for PE, so physical education. And anytime you see a set of stall bars, what I'm seeing is the most basic piece of equipment that is involved in the development of calisthenics, and associated with physical education, and physical education being the base of gymnastics, and that physical education simply being a body weight expression of the whole picture, and that being calisthenics. So that's how calisthenics has kind of served me. Beyond that, what is interesting is that you see now people taking calisthenics and turning it into a modality that even looks like a sport or an art. And I think that's very cool too. And for me, although I haven't done that, I haven't pursued that path, it's very empowering to see that as it translates really nicely into understanding how our bodies work, and once again encouraging people to speak the language of human movement.
Now, so one of the things that I think is quite interesting, so Ido Portal has talked about athletes, and talked about people with movement skills, and one of the things that he's famous for saying is that people have no awareness of how to move themselves in space. They have no kinesthetic awareness and ability to know what their body is doing. So why would I teach them a sport or hand them an apparatus without that? And when I hear what you're saying there, I think to myself, in my mind, I look at calisthenics and gymnastics principles as ways of teaching people the foundational skills of how to move yourself in space. And those are the skills upon which you build the rest of the building, right? They're the foundation. So like in terms of athletic development, how do you see the well, let me back up for a second and say, do you think, gymnastic skills, calisthenics, calisthenics conditioning, do you think that these things are important for other sports, or do you think that they're just kind of something that is particular to gymnastics and gymnastics competition?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Unfortunately, talking about movement literacy or one's ability to move and to do the basics is kind of like talking about preventative medicine. It's very unsexy. It's a hard sell. People are not interested in it until they get hurt or they can't accomplish something. In other words, when their ego gets involved and it gets bruised, that's when they start to pay attention a little bit. So there's something about presenting people with an artistic, a beautiful, aesthetically appealing expression, such as a sport or a trick, that can catalyze the conversation and then bring them to understanding, appreciating, and living through developing the basics. And I think that's the dissonance that a lot of coaches experience, or is also part of what someone like Guido Portal is talking about. Good job at marrying both those sides, the aesthetic, the fancy tricks, which is something that he shows a lot, with the conversation around master the basics, which is a never-ending process. You never master, you're only in the process of mastery.
Yes, yes. Well, and it's interesting, you know, you mentioned he's kind of taken this thing and made it a little bit sexy. And, you know, when I think about athletes that we've trained in our facility, it's always, everybody wants the usual, bigger, faster, stronger, right? But nobody wants to necessarily move better. And they don't consider that until, as you say, they're hurt or something like that, or they're a little bit older, more advanced in their career, and they go, oh geez, how am I going to stay on the field or on the court for longer? I need to know these things. And so I think it's interesting. And the challenge in our head is always like, how do we get these young guys to know that this stuff not only would keep them more healthier and you know, better able to maintain their longevity, but it would also allow them to move better and perform better and to do more of what they like to do and make it look more pretty, right? And it's always a little bit of a challenge trying to get people to get them to understand that.
Yeah. Okay. If I can add to that, I think what I found in my practice as a coach is autonomy is very empowering. And when one has autonomy and we can celebrate one's interest, what ends up happening is that it translates into wanting to know more.
Yes.
Because it's their choice. And when it becomes their choice, and all of a sudden a conversation unfolds, and it's not now us telling people that it's important that you floss. It just becomes a thing where you want to floss because you know it feels good. It's part of your practice, and I think that's a very special thing. And the other thing is sometimes we underestimate the youth. We underestimate their abilities and their capacity to understand complex concepts. They're very open. I mean, I've talked to 6-7-year-olds who understand. They actually get it emotionally. So it's our job to be able to articulate it intellectually in a way that makes sense. So yeah, I'm with you 100%, and I think it's possible.